E360 TV proudly presents messages of inspirational stories. Live streaming now to millions of devices, including Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, Android TV, YouTube Live, Facebook Live, with your host, Donna Guinea, producer and host, Jim Grant, producer and host, along with Michaela Vidal, administrator and host, and Gaia Guinea Balconi Wada, editor-in-chief.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Messages of Inspirational Stories. Jim, I am really excited about today's show. It is, of course, about pets we love.
Yes, it is. And I tell you, when it comes to pets, we're going to take a little flashback down memory lane. Some of you young folks there may want to look these couple of shows up we're going to mention, but they are classics.
And, they are.
And whenever you work with an animal on a TV show, Dan Haggerty said it best. He said, I heard him say two things about Ben. And Ben was a grizzly bear, a Kodiak. And he said, number one, Ben was the star of the show.
Right.
And number two, Ben made me a household name.
Gorgeous bear.
Oh, my goodness. And they found Ben, we're going to get more into that. They found her. It was a female bear. A lot of people don't know that Ben was a female Kodiak, and they found her working in a circus, and they figured, she was brought up by someone just like a pet. And after she got so big, they sold her to the circus. So that's how she got into TV. And she was born in 1960, and she passed away in 1990 at the age of 29 or 30. But she was just a wonderful, lovable pet to work with. Who would think a grizzly bear? You think of a grizzly bear, and
Well, again, it depends, I guess, kind of in the way they're raised, right? Mm-hmm. Just like with any animal, yep. How many times do we hear the bad raps on dogs, Jim? Pit bull, and it's gone the gamut, right? It's gone the gamut. Pit bulls, shepherds, Dobermans, Rottweilers, all these big breeds. And, really, yes, just like anything, there is once in a while, there's a animal that's just not right. Okay. Just completely not right. But 99.9% of the time, it's how they're reared.
You're right, because I remember as a kid growing up, everybody wanted a dog like Petey was on the Little Rascals. Spanky, it was his dog. And I didn't know that Spanky was a pit bull terrier because you think pit bulls and you think of, like a junkyard dog can bite you right through the fence or something, But it just floors me how they get such a bad rap. And, last week on this show, Donna, we had Monique, Mama Mo, she goes by, Kalowski. And her and her husband, they raise the red pit bulls. And her dogs have starred in several Hollywood movies. And in fact, she was on the show yesterday talking about, the passion that she has for helping youth overcome the struggles of life like she had to overcome the struggles of life. And very heart-touching type of presentation she did yesterday. And she's going to be with us a week from tomorrow on Friday for Women in Leadership. And this young lady, she is a leader. I can tell you that right now.
Right. She knocks it right out of the park.
Oh, she does. It's just and we met, and this is how things go in life. I was invited, since I had my heart attack, to tell my story, Lessons from the Heart, and be one of 9 authors in this book here, Your Health Turnaround Story, put on by Austin J. Haynes. And Austin's had me on his show. We talked about the book, but she was one of the authors in the book. And when I read her story, I thought, my goodness gracious. You look at her, she's got a beautiful smile and she's got the light in her eyes. And you would
Mhm.
think someone who'd went through as much tragedy as she has went through, she would just be, I don't know what you would say, but she looked like she never had a care or problem in the world. That's because she loved herself enough to forgive and let the others go,
Right,
because they had the problem, she didn't. And she was
right.
raised in foster homes and all sorts of stuff. And anyway, but that's how we met. And the point of it is that's how life introduces you to people. That's how the energy, come
Guides
on,
us.
yeah, down the pathway
Mhm.
of life and say, you need to work with this person here. And Donna and I, we had the same type of thing happen to us.
Mhm. We sure
Really
did.
did. And when we first met, we just, we knew we'd be friends. But same
Right.
thing I can say with Don McGrath and Dandy Don
Mhm.
McGrath. I knew we'd be friends. But oh my goodness gracious. I mean, talking about, the life of Grizzly Adams.
Right. So
His
I
life, go ahead. Mhm.
I love this show.
Mhm.
I've always adored animals my entire
Mhm.
life. My children are the same way. I if there was an animal that we could try and save, we did
Mhm.
as and I reared my children the same way. But this was a film was portrayed back in like the mountains as a
Yes.
Grizzly Adams was a frontier woodsman
Mhm.
around the year of 1853.
Mhm.
And after he was accused of a murder he didn't commit,
Mhm.
while he was struggling to survive, he saved an orphan grizzly bear cub that
Mhm.
he adopted named Ben.
Mhm.
Well, the bear, while growing up to its huge adult size,
Mhm.
becomes his closest companion. And he's
Mhm.
consistently kind and gentle.
Mhm.
And Adam discovers and demonstrates the uncanny ability to gain the trust of most of the indigenous wildlife of the region.
Mm.
And
Yes.
he helps, and sometimes rescues, and takes in many species.
Mhm.
Originally a hunter with his learned affection for wildlife, he resolves never to harm another animal whenever
Mhm.
possible.
Mhm.
Now, the interesting thing about this, Jim, and what we have is this was really quite true to his nature.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
It
he walked the walk too.
yeah, he sure did. And Haggerty in real life, the actor who was on the TV series with the star Ben, the female, her actual name was Bozo. They called her. I don't know why they named her that. It certainly didn't fit. But in real life, he lived in on a small ranch in California, and he worked with eagles and lions and stuff like that. So he had a natural talent and ability of communicating with animals, and they could communicate in. I mean, because animals can read us better than we can read them, and it just amazes me how when he saw Ben, he was the one that really took over as being the trainer during the show.
Hmm.
And I saw him talk about the different people in the show, and he says within 6 days we could put on an episode, no problem. And so,
Amazing.
that's a lot of work, but I mean, yeah, he said working with Denver Pyle and the other folks there, he says
Right.
it was just a wonderful thing. But the central core of the heartbeat of that show was the bear.
Hmm.
And when they canceled it, I forget which network it was on. It was either on NBC, CBS, or ABC. I think it was NBC it was on. But anyway, when the network canceled it, they were wanting to go more into some type of a new area like sitcoms or something like that. And the fan base, they really got upset.
Right.
They were mad because, like I heard Dan say one time, I saw him in a little interview. He said, people didn't care so much about me. They cared about the bear. The bear was the star of the show by far. And I remember back during those times watching him, and you could tell, you could feel the energy between them.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, you could see it. It came right across the screen.
There was
Just,
truly a respect and love
mm-hmm,
on screen between
mm-hmm,
Dan Haggerty and Ben the Bear.
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
But this was what was great. He said that I love this part. He says, on top of raising and rescuing the wild animals,
Hmm.
Haggerty truly lived the Grizzly Adams life, right?
Yes, he did.
Once Otis Chandler, the publisher of the Los Angeles Times, invited him to his home and proudly showed off a bear head he had mounted on the wall. And Haggerty responded by saying, "Hell, any jackass can point a gun at something and kill it. I
Yeah.
got a bear that's bigger than yours, and he rides around in the truck with me." I just love
That's
that.
that is classic, isn't it?
Right? But it cost $165,000 to
Mhm.
make the life and times of Grizzly Adams.
Yeah.
And and in the end, it took in nearly $30 million.
Yeah.
Now this
And
came out in the 70s, folks.
mhm. Yeah, yeah, it did. And the way all that happened was that the producer there, I don't remember his name off the top of my head. You may see his name
Let's see if I
there,
can
or you,
find it.
yeah. Anyway, he had done the movie and he just did not have a good feel for it. And what happened was that he saw a picture, I think it was, of Dan Haggerty, and he says, "That is Grizzly Adams." And
No, it
Dan
was his
Haggerty,
wife.
his wife
It,
was working for the guy.
the producer's wife said that.
Yeah. And it was the producer's wife that said that.
Hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, Dan Haggerty's wife was working for them. And she says, "Do you know this actor?" And said, "Yeah, that's Dan Haggerty." She said, "Wait a minute, your last name is Haggerty. Are you guys related?" "Yeah, he's my husband. Get him in here." And so they said, "We only got $165,000 left." And he said, "Well, hey, let's just do what we can do."
Right, right,
And you think about both of them at that point in time. They had a limited budget, but neither one thought for a moment that they couldn't do it.
right.
They didn't sit down and think about, well, we got this cost, we got that cost, we got this other cost, we need some more money, we need this or that. And they just went ahead and says, "Hey, we're just going to do it. We'll just use up the $165,000 and turned into 30, was it 30 million or something like that
30,
for them?"
almost 30 million. And that was a
I,
lot of money, folks, in the 70s.
yes, sir. It sure was. And
Hmm.
Donna, I'd like to get on a $165,000 deal where we put all the peanuts into the pot for 30 million. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That'd
Anyway,
work.
yeah,
But
yeah.
Dan Haggerty was born, Jim, in 1942,
Hmm.
and he actually endured a very, very difficult childhood.
Yes, he did.
His parents split up at the age of 3 and
Hmm.
leaving him at the mercy of military school at a very, very young age.
Hmm.
And naturally, the future outdoorsman struggled with the strict code of conduct at the school. He had run away from that institution multiple times
Hmm.
before going to live with his father, who was an actor in California. He then married at 17, which, of course, not surprisingly, ended in divorce. Not too
Hmm.
many people marry that young, stay married.
Oh, yeah.
But he got into acting, and his first role was in 1964, Muscle Beach Party,
Yeah.
and he
Frankie
played the
Avalon.
actor Biff right alongside Frankie Avalon and Annette Funicello.
Yeah, I bet he loved that.
Right, right. So he he did his got his earned his bones, if you will,
Hmm.
but really he thrived in this.
Hmm.
You can see it. He thrived in it.
Oh, yeah. It was his natural calling, and
Right.
even though he had a real tough upbringing, and he had a little bit of rebellious in him because he was rejected, is the way he felt,
Hmm.
and but he didn't let it eat him up,
Right.
and it just really inspires all of us when we see people like that, and we have guests on our show like the lady yesterday, Monique Mama Mo Kozlowski. Uh, those are the type of inspiring stories that we could all draw strength and energy from
Hmm.
because it's so many people, and we know a lot of them, Donna. you and I do, and folks out there in TV land know a lot of people too, who have been used and abused and went through horrible, marriages with control freaks and people who were just abusive, and abuse can be happen on both sides. But the fact of it is that for them to come out of that and just let all the scales of those feelings fall away and
Hmm.
come out anew. That really amazes me. You know what I mean?
Well, and I think it's interesting because there's so many people, Jim, who have gone through tragedy
Mm,
in their life, and now look at like Mama Mo and
yeah.
how her relationship with her dogs are, right?
Oh yeah.
So there is that healing process because we
Hmm.
know our animals, and it really doesn't matter what kind of animal you have. They
Hmm.
have unconditional love for you.
Hmm.
Unconditional, you know. We've talked about it many times. You've had some amazing dogs in your life. You've got your little trickster cat, Miss Miss
Yeah.
Dixie.
Yeah. She's what's called a Korat. Korat. That's the breed out of Thailand, and they're similar to the Siamese. But I tell you what, Donna, she has a personality that won't quit. One of the
Hmm.
things it says about her, and when I showed it to Evelyn, she cracked up laughing. They have a tendency to take over management of how things are put in the house. The other night she pushed a plate off the bar and broke it.
Oh,
We have to
okay.
be careful what we leave up there because if it's not Dixie approved, it's coming off.
It's down. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's just the way she is.
My old Siamese cat Simey used to do that in my office. He would
Hmm.
lay up on the desk with me, and
Hmm.
but he would do it real nonchalant. He'd kind of look up back at me, right,
Hmm.
and then he'd stretch, and he'd just stretch his arms out, and then off went all the paperwork.
Yeah. Yep. You look. Are you noticing me? Okay. Well, watch this.
Right, right.
Yeah. They
But
are
I mean,
person.
it's really interesting in the fact that these people um, give their heart back and heal with animals, and
Mm,
the animals heal with them.
yeah. Animals help them heal. I think they pick up on that too. I really do.
Well, look at the animals that people save. We see it all the time, on Facebook. There's all different kinds of, of little clips that go through the dodo, and
Mm. Oh yeah.
there's several others where these animals have been so abused and
Mm.
so neglected
Hmm.
that they should, by rights at how abused they've been, by all rights, they should be just mean beyond mean.
Oh yeah.
And they're grateful, Jim,
Mm.
and they're loving, and
Hmm.
they accept everything. Once they
Yes.
kind of realize that they're going to be safe and
Hmm.
they're not going to be hurt
Hmm.
anymore and just given love
Hmm.
and a wonderful life, they turn
Mm.
into some of the most amazing animals on the planet.
Yeah. I read a story, and it was about a guy that lived in Alaska, and his friend had died a week before from a heart attack, and he was out there walking on his property because his friend had traps and all that, and there was a wolf that was caught in one of the traps. The right front paw was caught in the trap,
Oof.
and he looked at it, and it was just caught, but it wasn't that bad. He wasn't going to lose a paw or anything. And he was wondering, how in the world can I, get this animal to trust me, or what can I do to be able to free it from this trap? Because I just don't want it to just stay there, because either going to have to chew its foot off or starve, one of the two. Because coyotes are known to chew off their foot if they're caught like that and can't get loose. And
Right.
anyway, he noticed that this was a female wolf, and that she had teats and they were full of milk. So
Mhm.
he knew she had little pups
Wolf
somewhere.
cubs, yeah.
Yeah, so he went out and he started looking for these little cubs, and he found her tracks and he went up this hill into the woods and it led right to a den and he was able to look in there and there was four little cubs in there. And so he pulled them out and he gathered them together and he carried them back down where the mama wolf was. And then he set them down fairly close to her. Of course, she's watching him like, what are you doing with my kids,
Right.
And they ran up there and they, started nursing from their mother and all that. And then he went off and he had some meat, some venison, and he brought back some venison and laid it close. He wanted a stick and he put it close to her and she kind of reluctantly took it because she was hungry. I mean, she was
Right.
in a desperate situation. Anyway, he stayed there with her, in the evening and all that to protect her. And yeah, he just had felt really obligated. He had to do something for this poor animal. And one morning he was woken up and the little cubs were licking his face and she was just watching them.
Oh.
Yeah. And he was petting them and loving them just like you would any puppy or,
Mm-hmm.
and she was kind of like looking at him and all that. And then he was able to, give the piece of meat closer with his hand without a stick.
Right.
And she took it from his hand. So he was slowly earning her trust. And then he put his, the next day, he took it very slowly. This went over about 10 days or more. And he put his hand on the injured, right above the injured part, and she didn't move. And he was talking to her and telling him, I'm going to try to free you. And he hit the release on the trap, and she freed her foot, and she immediately started licking it. And so then he took the trap away and threw it, over to the side. And she knew that not only was he not a threat to her babies, but what he had done for her.
Right.
And then she showed him some love and appreciation because she was leading the pups back up and she turned and stopped and looked at him like, come on.
Oh.
So he followed her. And she led him up to where some other wolves were, and he stood back in the distance and watched them. And she kept turning around looking at him. And he says, I'm good, like that. And then he had to go to war during World War II. And so naturally, the war broke out. He got called and he had to leave, and he went. And then after the war, he went back up there in the area, and he was, kind of like hollering for her a little bit. And she came up on the ridge and looked at him. And he said, she didn't come close to me, but I waved to her and, made some noises to her and she talked back to me. And he says, I'm just so glad you're doing well and how the pups or cubs now are, I imagine,
Right.
of course, they're all grown and gone, but it was just an act of kindness.
Right.
And we see that even you see YouTube clips
Mm-hmm.
of wild animals that don't even know a person come up to a person because there's something in that person they can sense.
Right.
And they know that this person is there to help them.
Absolutely.
The same thing
Absolutely.
happens to humans, but the problem is, Donna, we don't recognize it.
I think we get so busy, Jim,
Mm-hmm.
in our own personal life and our own struggles that oftentimes our empathy is left somewhere else,
Yes.
right? Our empathy to help people, our empathy to reach out and understand, and just do the right thing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But I mean, I saw a video where a bear came up to a stranger and they needed to get help for the cub, and he was able to help the cub get him out of I
Mm-hmm.
think it was a dumpster he was in. They put the ladder in there, and the cub climbed out. And they
Yep.
both went
I
on their
think
way.
I've seen that video.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen it with
Mhm.
wild horses,
Mhm.
with moose cubs, with deer,
Yeah.
where the baby is in an
In a
area where
predicament.
mom can't get to it and it needs to
Mhm.
cross over, and somebody's come along and helped it. And
Mhm.
that is absolutely a beautiful thing because
Mhm.
let's be honest, without all the creatures in this world, our ecosystem is so out of balance.
Ooh, yes,
Every
it is.
time we lose one of our beautiful species in this world,
Hmm.
our world becomes just a little bit more unround, if you will,
Hmm.
becomes a little more out of balance.
Yeah, it does. And the thing when we see stories of, you know, animals, wild animals coming up to a human and the human does the right thing,
Yep.
that touches our heart. But it also touches our heart when we see wild, animals, whether they're wild or not, from different species taking care of
Ah,
other species babies. That because I
that
think yeah, Donna, I think deep down inside we know that we know that's the way this world was originally created for all the nonsense started.
right, right. And it's so important. We've seen, how many times have you seen, I've seen videos of a cat taking in a orphaned squirrel.
Oh,
I've
yeah.
seen them take in other orphan cats,
Hmm.
or, along with their own or a pup,
Hmm.
and or vice versa. A puppy
Hmm.
takes in an orphan kitten.
Hmm.
And the funny thing is I've seen those videos where a cat has been raised with nothing but pups,
Hmm.
and it doesn't act like a dadgum cat at all.
No.
It acts like a dog. I mean, it rough and tumbles and plays with the dogs
Hmm.
just like the dogs do. It
Yeah.
goes on a leash
Yeah.
because its brothers and sisters are on a leash walking,
Hmm.
through the trails and whatnot.
Hmm.
And it's hysterical, but it's
Yeah.
so beautiful, Jim.
It really is. And I remember back in I think it was 88 or 89, somewhere in there. I was out of town. I was up at Fort Lewis, Washington on annual training. I call home, and my wife says, "We have a new addition to our family." And I said, "Well, that's nice, honey. I didn't know you were pregnant when I left." And she said there was a storm that came up, and there was this little duck that was just a little gray and white type duck. It wasn't a mallard or anything. We
Right.
we never could figure out. It just couldn't figure out what kind of a duck it was. And Lisa and James went around to the neighbors and said, "Hey, did you guys lose a duck?" "No, no, no, no." And we didn't know where it came from, so they called him Stormy and named him Stormy because he got delivered in a storm. But
Right.
that duck attached himself to our male, dog, Sammy, who was a Norwegian elk hound, and he kept looking like, "What's this little thing following me for?"
Uh-huh.
And that duck would go quack quack harf, quack quack harf. It was the funniest thing you ever saw. I mean, it just crack you up. But yeah, it just goes to show you how animals can be so adaptive to their environment. So therefore, if they receive a lot of love and treated like family, that's the way they demonstrate it to others. Well, on the other hand, if they're treated meanly, they just reflect that back out.
Right. Well, and sometimes animals imprint differently,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So we have one cat, Niner, and right, she's affectionately known as our two-ton Tessie because she's
Mhm.
short and squat, and she's
Mhm.
stout. I mean, she's a big girl and she's strong. She does not like to be held very long by my husband.
Mhm.
And yesterday, he was holding her, and he wasn't too far from the fan in the family room. And I'm watching him, and because I know her, because she's one, she's comes to me all the time. And she was squirming with him, and I thought in my head, "Oh God, tell me she's not going to jump." Good thing he was holding on to her because she wanted to jump clear up into the fan while it
Mm.
was moving.
Mm.
And I'm like, "Oh, cheesy Pete." But that
Mm.
one has adopted my Great Pyrenees.
Mm.
That's her dog.
Mhm.
And she bothers Jake to the point where where the poor guy gets up and comes and looks at me like, "Mom, help. She won't leave me alone." And
Mhm.
I'll have to literally pick her up and move her because
Mhm.
she just loves on him so much.
Yeah.
And it drives
Yeah.
him bonkers.
Mhm. And he says, "I didn't sign up for this deal. I got drafted."
Right? Absolutely.
But when we think about all of our animals and the animals we love and animals we had growing up, I really growing up, the dog, the show Lassie. Oh my goodness gracious! I could not miss an episode of that because for those young folks,
Mhm.
we grew up in a time where we did not get cheated when it came to movies and shows
No,
having morals and values and things of that nature. And Lassie was a very smart dog.
right.
And it was portrayed to be a female dog, but all the Lassies that played that series, and that series played for a long time,
Oh, years.
yeah, every dog was a male. But I mean, if Timmy, the little boy, if he got in trouble or if he got, I mean, Lassie knew exactly what to do. And
Right.
arf, 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 come on, we got to go and get them going. And I mean, oh man, Lassie was a classic show. And I know there's folks out there, if you folks in TV land around the world, there's movies you've seen and that have animals in them. And animals really do steal the show.
Yes, they do.
They are that special. They steal our hearts and our lives. They steal the show in real life. And, it's kind of funny what Dan Haggerty said. He said that Ben made him a star, and Ben was the star of the show. And but that's true with our animals. They are many times they are the only source of love that a person may have in their life. The true unconditional love.
Right.
And that's something
Well,
we all crave.
they can heal us in so many ways, Jim.
Mm-hmm.
So it is known, scientifically proven, that a cat's purr can
Mm.
help uh, you lower your heart rate,
Mm-hmm.
right? Help reduce stress. There's something so soothing
Mm-hmm.
about the way a cat purrs. And it's
Mm-hmm.
funny because there's not going to be a cat that purrs the same. It's
Mm-mm.
like their own unique fingerprint, if you will,
Yeah.
right? They all purr differently. I have four. Three of them are blood sisters, a Siamese, a Russian blue, and a little troublemaker. my little my little sweet Glock.
Mm-hmm.
Her and Bullet are both. Oh, geez, what are they, Jim? I just now forgot.
Let's see, are they Bombays?
Thank you,
Mm-hmm.
thank you. Just went clean out of my head. Bombays,
Yeah. Mm.
and they are actually very, very gentle cats. They don't
Mm-hmm.
look like it
Mm-mm.
because they look like Black Panthers, but they're very
Yeah.
gentle. I've had
Yeah.
four in my life, and they are all very gentle. They
Mm-hmm.
don't bite hard. They
Mm-hmm.
don't. If you're playing with them on their belly and they go to what I call jackrabbit you with their back legs,
Mm-hmm.
their claws don't come out very
Mm-mm.
hard.
Mm-mm.
But the Russian blue, now
Mm.
that one,
You're in season.
you can be in trouble with that one. But
Yeah.
they all are just beautiful in the way
Mm-hmm.
that they give love and want love from us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We picked up Tigger. She was a Bombay, and I'd never heard of a Bombay cat before. And I went to the animal shelter here in town, the local animal shelter, and I was kind of like looking for a little kitty.
Right.
And we had one at the shop, and we had lost it. It ran off or something. I don't know. But I was thinking, well, I enjoyed having a little cat around here, so went to get one. Saw this little black cat, and it was a little kitten. And I thought, it just the way it was just sitting there, kind of picturesque, like I was getting this photograph taken or whatever. And I thought, I'll just take that one there, and I did. And the coat on it, on a Bombay, it's very black and satiny. There's
Silky.
no white on it at all. And I didn't know what kind of a cat it was. And then when I took it to the vet, and the vet says, "This is a Bombay."
Hmm.
And I said, "What's a Bombay?" He said, "Oh, it's a breed of cat." He says, "They're very unique." He says, "Where'd you find it at?" And I said, "Well, or where'd you get him at?" And I said, "Well, I got her at the animal shelter." He says, "Really?" He says, "This is a nice breed of cat." And I
Hmm.
started reading up on them, and they are described as being like a little Black Panther because we brought Tigger home, and we'd bring her home on weekends and stuff, And after I sold the business, retired, and all that, I had her here full time. She was always on patrol. We would we would, you look out in the backyard, there she was. And
Mm-hmm.
a few minutes later, you look in the front yard, and there she is. She was always on patrol. And I think I told the story here recently about when I was up on the roof, I was making this sealant around, putting sealant around or caulking around the chimney and the fence and all of that. And so I come back down. Of course, Tigger got up there to make sure I did it right. Cat's going to make, okay, this cats figure that, a female cat figures a guy needs supervision. That just comes with the turf. And so I come in and I'm sitting down there and I'm relaxing, and Tigger's in the house and she comes up on me. She starts pawing, or what's called kneading me.
Oh yeah.
And they have that, they get that
Mm-hmm.
trance look, look in their eyes, and they're, you know, away. And I thought, oh, isn't this sweet? And I looked down. I said, "Wait a minute, you little monkey! You're getting that black tar all over my sweatshirt." They have an ulterior motive sometimes. I
Right?
mean, we are servants, and if we understand that, you're good to go when it comes to cats, because you live with cats, and dogs live with you. That's the way that world
R-
turns.
Right. Right. So,
And
it's said in here, I'm trying to find it, talking
hmm
about Grizzly Adams,
hmm
where, oh, geezy Pete, here we go. Here we go.
hmm
Um, Give me 2 seconds, folks. I apologize.
hmm
But it was really interesting. It talks about um, Bart the bear was also, I believe it was Bart that Bart was on as Grizzly Adams at one point.
hmm Yeah,
That
yeah.
that they had him in there. There we go.
hmm
Yeah. In addition to Ben the bear, there were many other animals in the TV series. The most prominent being number 7, Mad
hmm
Jack's Ornery Mule. Bart the bear, and then a bear cub, made
hmm
one of his first acting appearances in the series, playing Ben as a cub. So Ben was, or yeah, Ben was actually found in Kansas. Did
Yes,
you?
that's right.
Yeah, yeah, in Kansas. It's
hmm
crazy,
hmm
right? He was purchased from a Kansas zoo and trained by Bob Leonard.
hmm
What are the odds?
mm
What are the odds? And and I've always thought it would be a fabulous thing to have big animals like that.
mm mm
Bears and tigers and lions and you know,
mm
my husband of course thinks I'm absolutely insane and I'm like,
hmm
okay, well, I've already, had my a whole picture session done with a wolf, and it was
hmm
amazing. And talk about a bucket list. And I
mm
would do it again in a heartbeat. It was just something. It was something because here's this gorgeous, gorgeous wolf,
mm
and um, she's coming up to me, and she's like, she was so excited. She knocked me over, first of all. I wasn't expecting that, right on my rear end. And next, so I'm sitting up on the picnic table, and she gets up there with me. And of course, she's just, whoop, gets up there, no problem. And then she kind of starts nuzzling me. And then
hmm
all of a sudden, she goes, you know how dogs will do where they're loving on you, but they go, nah, 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 on your chin,
hmm
and they kind of nibble on you.
hmm
Well, she did that, and I started laughing, and that was one of the pictures that they got.
hmm
Because who expects a wolf to
Yeah.
do the nibble on your chin, right?
Oh, yeah.
But all these animals, you know,
Mm,
when people find them, unfortunately,
mm,
Jim, like in this case, it turned out great for Ben. But some
mm,
people think that they're cute and cuddly and they're
mm,
little and you can get them and raise them and it's not an issue. But,
mhm,
there's dietary and veterinarian issues that you have to be aware of. It isn't like having a regular dog or a regular cat.
mm.
Their diets have to be different,
Oh,
right? And
yeah.
there are certain domestic cats that we have
Mhm,
now that have to have more of their normal wild diet than
mhm,
cat food,
mhm.
right?
Yes, they do, and, it goes to show you how, you know, our food supply has changed for everything, for all of us.
Hmm.
And as I was covering, I think it was on Tuesday's show about when you look at after World War I, we had the Spanish flu, and then we started the Roaring Twenties, and then people migrated into start using processed food rather than making things from scratch.
Having gardens.
Yes, and in other words, doing the easy way, taking the easy way. And what happens is when you look at the increase of processed foods over that period of time from the 20s through the 60s, you see an increase about the same type of growth in heart disease.
Hmm.
And that's a,
Well,
and
I think all diseases, Jim,
yes, yes.
because here's the thing.
Mhm.
Um, any autoimmune disease starts in your gut,
Oh, yeah.
right? And I have two of them. I have arthritis, I've had
Mm.
since I was 9, and I have MS. And don't exactly know when I had that. I know when I was diagnosed, but I don't know when it,
When it
came
came
to,
about.
right, when it came to live with me.
Hmm.
Um, but it starts in your gut, and
Hmm.
and we eat pretty well. I mean, we eat
Hmm.
from scratch. But on the other hand, I don't raise my own beef,
Hmm. Yeah.
right? I don't raise my own chickens.
Hmm.
um, so we have that, so you think about that. You're right.
Hmm.
Everything has, not everything, but a good portion of it comes from that. And
Hmm.
with our animals, and one thing I talk about with people who, and I think it's important to say this: when people have rodent issues and
Hmm.
they immediately want to go out and get, say they got rats and they want
Hmm.
to get rat poisoning.
Hmm.
Well, okay, I get it. It gets rid of the rats. But what it does is when those rats go out and wild birds
Hmm.
come down and get those rats and they're filled with poisoning, it kills
Hmm.
the birds. So
Oh,
the
yeah.
cycle doesn't end.
Hmm.
And my thought is, well, if you have an infestation, why do you have that infestation?
Mm.
So for me,
Yeah.
it's like anything else. Get rid of the cause, get rid of the
Hmm.
root cause,
Hmm.
right? And then you won't have that infestation anymore.
Oh, yeah. You're hitting a nail on the head there because everything from the molecular level on up, it's got to have nourishment in the right environment to flourish.
Right.
Even what we call a weed in our yard, it's got to have the right nourishment environment.
They can survive the apocalypse,
Yeah, yeah,
but our flowers
yeah.
won't.
I have found out that the dandelion is a great herb
Oh, yeah.
for the heart and things of this nature.
Hmm.
Excuse me.
Has a
And
lot of great properties to it.
yeah, dandelion tea. Yeah, if you're wanting to do some positive things for your blood, your kidneys, and all that, take a look at dandelion. It's I heard and I read it and I tried to find it again. I couldn't find it. I don't know if it was taken down or for some things, a lot of things you look for, again you
And
can't
then can't
find.
find them, right?
But it was talking about the people behind the education of us that the dandelion is a weed. You get rid of it out of your yard. Uh, they had an ulterior motive for that because they knew what the dandelion plant could do for
Hmm.
humans. I'll just say that and I'll leave it at that. And you can roll your own. But I'd like to talk if a little bit about, if we can, some of the most popular animals that we have as pets here in the United States. And I didn't know some of these would make the top 10. I really didn't. And of course, I think we all know what number one and number two are. But when it comes to this wonder list, this was put out by Warden Harja, top 10 most popular pets in America. Number 10 on the list is ferrets. I've only known a few people in my life that have had ferrets for pets.
I know several, and ferrets
Yeah.
are amazing.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing is, they, even though when you, they are have a scent to them, right? They can, if
Mm-hmm.
you don't get them descended,
Hmm.
Um, it can be very, um, very difficult to be around them,
Yeah.
sort of like a skunk. But
Hmm.
even though they're descented, they always have that musky smell
Hmm.
to
Yeah.
them. And that can, to be, for some people, can be a turn off, right?
Hmm.
That can be a real turnoff. But they are actually very affectionate animals, Jim.
Hmm. That's what I've been told. I've just never have, had one as a pet or anything like that. And they're cute little guys. They really are. And
Well, I love the little hoppy hop they do.
oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Hmm. Well, and rabbits are another one.
Hmm. Yeah.
And rabbits are really great. You can actually raise rabbits and cats, but you
Hmm.
need to raise them together. Otherwise,
Hmm.
they're more of a enemy against each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
The problem with a rabbit, like with a kitten, is they want to chew through things when they're little.
Oh yeah. Toothing. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And
Yeah.
so, your outlets, your cords, you got to be really careful, just like you do with
Yeah.
puppies or kittens
Yeah.
or what have you.
Yeah.
And
Because
ferrets are the same way.
yeah, because they're going to gnaw, and I
Yeah.
mean, if you got them in wooden cages, guess what? They're going to chew those things up,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
you got to be careful. You don't want to put them in plastic because they will gnaw on plastic. But plastic is not good for them.
Right.
Wood's not good for them either, but wood's better than plastic. That's for sure.
Well, and neither is the fill, while we're on that subject, real quick, Jim.
Hmm.
The fiber fill that comes
Hmm.
in so many little toys that we give our animals.
Hmm.
So when my cats destroy one of their little play mices
Hmm.
and that fill comes out, it's immediately thrown away.
Oh yeah.
If I can't stitch it up, because if it goes into their intestines, you're looking at
Oh.
90% of the time or better, you're looking at surgery.
Hmm.
It's gonna give them a huge block, and
Hmm.
so that's going to require surgery. So
Yeah.
I don't. I stopped giving Jake those kind of toys
Hmm.
when he was really quite young, and
Hmm.
there was nothing I could give him that he wouldn't rip through,
Hmm.
because he's got the jaws of steel. And
Hmm.
back about probably about 8, 9, 10 years ago, they came out with those dog toys that are
Hmm.
indestructible.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I can tell you firsthand that's a load of crap.
Yeah.
They're destructible, trust me.
Hmm. Number 9 on this list, and these are cute, cool. I've always enjoyed looking at these little guys. These iguanas. They have
Oh,
very unique personalities, and I find them very fascinating. I've never had an iguana as a pet, but as I understand, they can be very unique and phenomenal pets. And I've known people that's had iguanas, and they really bring a lot of joy to them in their life. And have
mhm.
you ever had a iguana, Donna?
No, but when I was little, we had a salamander that we caught,
Mm.
and we named it Sally.
Hmm.
And Sally grew and grew and grew and did not stop growing and got huge. So we ended up taking her to the Phoenix Zoo and donating her to the zoo.
Hmm.
But man, she loved raw hamburger.
Mm. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. These little iguanas, they do very well. They live up to 20 years, it says here, and they're very happy inside their little terrariums, not aquarium, but terrariums.
Right.
And they love the sunlight because, after all, they are a desert animal, and they need to have good light. And doctors recommend, if they're in a place where they can't get direct sunlight, you should have at least artificial light on them. And guess what made number 8 is one of the most popular pets here in America. And I could never, as in never, never, ever, ever have this as a pet
A
in my
snake.
house. Yes, ma'am. You hit it.
No.
Yeah.
I just I think they're fascinating,
Hmm.
and there's so many beautiful snakes out there. I am not a snake girl.
Yeah. Snakes belong in one place outside. I
Outside.
tell I tell people here in the country, we have a lot of different variety of snakes. I see the little green snake from time to time. I'll see a garter snake every now and then. the most common snake that I see around here is what's called the Texas rat snake, or they refer to as a chicken snake. And that snake can get up to be about 6 foot long. And they're tree climbers. And I tell the story how one time I was walking in the woods and looking around, because we have copperheads here. And out of the corner of my eye, I see something. Here's a snake on a limb looking at me. And that'll take you back for a second or
Yes, it
two there.
will. Yes, it
And
will.
it's just a tree climber, but they're not. And I leave snakes like that alone. And if I run into copperheads out in the out back in my woods or something like that, I'll leave them alone. But if they come around my house, I'm going to take them out.
Right,
The
right.
copperheads are not aggressive at all. I've heard a lot of stories, but they are not aggressive.
Well, we have, gosh, I'm trying to remember how many different species of rattlesnakes there are.
Oh,
I want to say between 7 and 10.
yeah, you're right.
And because there's also a rattleless rattlesnake.
I didn't
Has
know
no-
that.
Yes, it has no rattle.
Hmm.
And
He must have come from the post side of town.
well, it's a sneaky sucker, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
But we have what they call a Mojave rattlesnake.
Yes.
Now,
Yeah.
those things are aggressive and mean, and they will chase you.
And they have the neurotoxin, more of the neurotoxin than the hemotoxin. The
Mhm.
difference between that, the neurotoxin will actually attack and try and start shutting down your central nervous system, which
Right.
means your heartbeat and your breathing.
Right,
Where the hemotoxin, that more destroys tissue.
right, right.
And
They're more necrotic.
yeah, exactly.
Right.
And it's just, yeah, because you take like the the Diamondbacks. I mean, I've walked up on a couple of them out there when I lived in Arizona. I didn't see them much, but 2 times in 20 years, which is not much at all.
And I think
Rarely.
it depends on where you live.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
But when you walk up on them, they'll start rattling that head like this, and you walk around them and they'll follow you.
Oh, yeah.
And when you back off a little bit, they'll calm down. But when you start advancing towards them a little bit, knowing that they can strike half their length,
Exactly.
and when they strike the first time, you
It's a
don't
full
see it.
punch.
You'll see the recoil is all you
Recoil.
see.
Mhm,
The
mhm.
second time, they're real quick and they're a little bit slower getting back. Third time, when they strike, they're very, very slow. And that's when the roadrunner will jump on the back of the neck of one and peck at the back of his head. And that's how a little roadrunner can kill a rattlesnake. I didn't
Right.
know that for years. But like I said, the copperhead, the Army manual describes it as being a very quiet and inoffensive snake. And that's exactly what it is. I mean, you can be out there weed eating and you'll see one and it just kind of like, go away, leave me alone.
Or not see one because they camouflage so well.
Yeah, that's right, especially in leaves. And
Mm.
I've walked up beside them, and one night, maybe I shouldn't say this, but living in the country, you want to go inside, or there's an oak tree right over there. And so I walked right over to the oak tree, and I'm standing there, and I look down, and I'm within about 1.5 feet of a copperhead snake just laying there, and I'm going like, that's not good. So I hurried up, you might say, and went and got something to take care of it. But I mean, they're not just gonna just coil up and bite you. You
Right.
gotta mess with them. But I tell you what, once you mess with them, the fight is on.
They turn mean.
Yeah, they get aggressive in a heartbeat, and they'll strike and strike and strike at you. I've seen. I mean, I've experienced that personally, so I know. So I know
Mm.
both ends of them. You walk up beside them, they won't even coil. But you mess with them, you better eat your Wheaties. Let's hurry
Well,
up through the list here. We're almost out of time. Of course, we know number 7 on the list is what? Birds, parrots.
mhm.
Oh, man. Number 5, I think a lot of kids have guinea
Pig.
pigs going up. Did you ever have a guinea pig?
No. Because we
We've-
always had cats.
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody, one time my dad was asking, you got any pets in the house? I said, well, we have mice, but they're not really pets. But
Well-
mice are number 5 on the list as a pet. Number 4, of course, is fish. There's something so relaxing about watching a fish in an aquarium in there, Donna.
Well, in my
Oh.
house, it would be bait.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
would be
With
full of bait.
that's because you live in a cat house.
Hmm.
And what's next on the list after fish?
I don't know if it's cats or dogs.
No, it's hamsters.
Oh,
Hamsters. Yeah,
yes.
those little guys.
My friends always had hamsters when I was little. Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, I've played with them, many times in my hands, and we had hamsters there for a while when the kids were small. But they're neat little pets. They really
My
are.
kids had tree frogs.
Mm. And number two, of course, we know what that is. Drum roll, please, from the lady that owns the cat house.
It would be cats.
Yes, they are. Says cats in the wild would have existed in North America, but the domesticated species is first brought in this country with the English. And of course, we know number one on the list is dogs, and we're running out of time.
Yeah.
And we could talk about dogs and cats and animals all day long. And ladies and gentlemen, our time is gone. We got to wrap this thing up. We sincerely hope you enjoyed the show. Be sure and love yourself first, and then you can love others. Most importantly, as Donald likes to say, give yourself,
Grace.
and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye bye.